Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Hey guys, my name is Endigo, welcome to my channel. As you might be able to tell, I'm wearing my Mario Rabbids t-shirt and I'm wearing my suit jacket. And that is because we are getting serious about games. So today I'm gonna tell you about my story with working at GameStop and more specifically why I quit my job at GameStop. All the facts, all the myths. Longtime viewers on my channel probably know that I used to work at GameStop a couple of years ago here in Stockholm, Sweden, and I worked there for about a year and I quit after about a year, right before a year had passed. Actually, I'll get into that. Working at GameStop is one of those things that you read about on the internet and you hear stories about people who have worked there, who've quit their jobs and what they've been asked to do and had to do to be able to do their job or even keep their job. And so today I thought I'd share my story with all the facts, all the myths. If you're a person who's considered working at GameStop, or if you worked at GameStop before, or anything regarding GameStop, I think this might be quite an interesting video. So feel free to join me for a little story about working at GameStop. So our story begins in the fall of 2013 while I was just a 21-year-old little chap looking for a job somewhere, something to do in Stockholm, Sweden. At the time I was unemployed, I was playing in my old band but we weren't really making any money, and this was before I started doing YouTube and trying to really do this in any sort of serious manner. So at this time I was basically looking for jobs and I was going to job interviews all the time, different stores, different companies, and all kinds of different, you know, entry-level stuff, just something to pay my bills basically. GameStop in Sweden, a specific GameStop store, was looking for somebody or some people to join them for the launch, the holiday launch of the PS4. They needed extra personnel for that. At this time in my life, I considered myself somewhat of a video game librarian in a way. I read all the magazines, I read all the forums, I listened to every single video game podcast out there every single week, and I still do to this very day. So I thought of myself as very knowledgeable, and the fact that they were looking specifically for somebody to help, you know, sell the PS4 as it launched, I thought, you know, I might have a good chance of getting this. At least I know every single teraflop in the PS4, so, you know, I might be better than your average teenager who tries to get a job at GameStop. Who knows? So I went online, I applied for the job online, and I got a call the next day actually saying, "Hi, this is some person from GameStop. Do you want to come in and do an interview?" I was very shocked, very surprised, but very happy to be able to get a chance at working with, you know, games in some small way. I go to the interview and the interview is run by two people, a girl who I never saw after that interview and this guy who turns out later was in fact the GameStop region manager. Quick note, by the way, I'm not gonna give out any real names of any of the real people I worked with, so let's just replace them with animal names, because we all love animals. So I do the interview with this girl and the region manager, let's call him Albatross. About a week passes and I'm sitting on nails every single day until I finally get a call from Albatross himself. "Hey Endigo, remember that interview you did for GameStop? Do you want the job?" I of course say yes, and 2 weeks later, sometime in November, I start my very first GameStop store. Oh boy. In my particular shop, there are 4 people working. It's me, it's the store manager, let's call him Hawk. There's this girl, let's call her Ant, and there's this guy, let's call him Mouse. First thing I want to point out is that my store manager, Hawk, he was great. He was a great guy, he was super funny, he was really good with customers, and he was really nice to me. He noticed that I was kind of new to the job and I was like really excited, but at the same time kind of shy because I didn't want to mess up my chance of working with games. He was a great guy all around, so big ups to Hawk. So during November and December, me, Hawk, this girl Ant, and this other guy Mouse, we run the store together, and it's going well. We're all getting along together. Me and Hawk and me and Mouse especially get along really well. Mouse is really into music, so we talk a lot about that and about Asian music. Me and the girl, however, Ant, we don't really click at all. In fact, I found her to be kind of rude in some weird way, in a way that I don't really think you should be towards new people, like very arrogant, but I digress. She was younger than me, so whatever. So the months go, November passes and December passes, and we close in on Christmas, and at this point I don't get the hate, I don't get the myths about GameStop that you hear online and you've probably seen other videos of. Nothing about like pushing for memberships or pushing for pre-owned or pushing for pre-orders, none of that like aggressive GameStop mentality. I don't see any of that in my stores. I'm like, this is great. December comes, the PS4 launches, and you know, it's all good fun. Sorry, just gotta... We then go into spring of 2014, and Hawk, my store manager, announces to me and to the other employees that he's quitting GameStop. He's gonna quit not only the store, but he's gonna quit GameStop entirely to go do something else. And frankly, I don't know what he did after that. I haven't talked to him. Now, before Hawk quit, he signed my vacation papers. I was applying for summer vacation in the summer of 2014, and when you want to have a vacation at GameStop, you have to let your store manager look through it, look what dates you want to go, and sign those dates. And so I had applied for about 3 weeks of summer vacation, which I didn't think was, you know, too much or anything. I wanted to go to some festivals. I wanted to do some live shows with my old bands, and you know, Hawk looked through it and he was like, yeah, seems fine. So he approved it all, and then he quit. So goodbye, Hawk. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the story takes its first dark turn. The new store manager arrives, and it's a girl, let's call her Beaver. Beaver arrives to the store, and this is really where everything starts going downhill a little bit. Turns out that Beaver and Ant, my other female coworker, they are already very close friends. In fact, they've been going on trips together, and they've been like having parties together for years and years. And apparently Beaver has been working in some other store as not a store manager, but you know, something higher than just a normal salesperson. But this is the first time Beaver is running her own store, and Beaver and Ant are like this dynamic duo of really like eccentric girls who like do stuff together. At this point also, Mouse doesn't really work all that much because he's doing other stuff in between. So, you know, he only comes in like a few times a month, and I'll say hi. So for the absolute most part, it's Beaver, it's Ant, and it's me. And sometimes it's just two of us. Sometimes I'm there alone for a full day, which is fine, you know. I enjoy privacy and listening to the music and talking to people. It's cool. Now, where things get a little bit tricky is that not only is Beaver and Ant already close friends since before Beaver joined, but also Beaver and Albatross, the region manager, are also pretty close friends. Just keep that in mind. Once Beaver starts, everything starts making sense. Everything I've read online, everything I've heard online, seen people on YouTube talk about, I see what the internet has been referring to about GameStop. Basically, behind the counter where the staff sends as they do the money transactions, there's a book called The Beat Yesterday, which is a book that every employee has to fill out every single day. How many pre-orders you acquired, how many membership signups you acquired, how many trade-ins you managed to get that day, how many pieces of hardware you managed to trade in and or sell that day, and how many of those were pre-owned. The idea is that every employee fills out these numbers for themselves every day, and then at the end of the week you take a look at the week and compare it to every week before that, how well every single employee is doing and how the store in overall is doing week to week. Fine system, I suppose. The thing is, however, that every month a paper goes out. In fact, a bunch of papers stapled together goes out to every single GameStop store in that city. And this paper contains all the stats of every single store. You have the top selling stores in the city, you have the bottom selling stores in the city, you have the top selling employees in every single store, you have the bottom selling employees in every store. And this is not just selling products. This is top seller who acquires the most pre-orders, bottom sellers who acquire the least pre-orders. This in itself is kind of messed up, but not only that, you also get good comments for like, yeah, good work on pushing pre-orders, but there are also snarky comments on this. Oh, John in this store only did 2 pre-orders this entire month. Bad work, John. And this paper with these comments and also angry smiley faces goes out to every single store in the entire city. So if you don't do a good job, every store in the city will know. But this is still just the tip of the iceberg, trust me. I should also mention that at this time there were 2 types of GameStop stores. There were normal GameStop stores, which were GameStop stores located anywhere, but there were also Game Compete stores, and this was a GameStop store located in the same mall or in the vicinity of Game, which was the other huge video game retailer. And these two were like the rival stores. Game has since then closed down for business, bankruptcy in total in Sweden. But at this time, Game was still going, and in my particular case, there was a Game store and there was a GameStop store in the same building. This meant that my particular GameStop store was a Game Compete store, which in practice meant that we had better deals, we had better prices, we were way more aggressive with marketing than other GameStop stores that weren't Game Compete stores. Also, my coworkers, Ant and Beaver and other people who came in, used to fake, this is not a lie by the way, they used to call Game next door with a like fake number and a fake voice and like, hey, my name is Herpaderp. how much do you charge for Call of Duty? Whoever replied a game would say, oh, we charge this much, and then they would go, oh, thank you, and that day we would then have a sale on that particular game. Stuff like that. Basically the end goal was to make that game store go out of business in total, and this was not just an internal goal we had, this was straight from Albatross himself, who was the regional manager. Every single Game Compete GameStop store had this goal directly from Albatross. The goal was to get Game out of business, and what did happen was eventually Game did go out of business. Game in my mall did go out of business, and you know what happened? My store got a $500 bonus to go do whatever we wanted to celebrate, straight from Albatross. Like, hey, go. So we basically went to an amusement park and a dinner, and it was all on GameStop as a kind of thank you for getting Game out of business bonus. This in itself, while kind of slimy, also is kind of weird. Beaver herself, our store manager, had to cash this entire amusement park thing up front. She was then to return the receipts to Albatross, who would give her the money back, and he never did. Anyway, back to the story. Most of the weeks I hit all these goals, the pre-order, the membership, whatever. I usually hit all these goals. Sometimes I'm way above the goals, sometimes I'm just below it, but most of the weeks I am the best selling seller in most categories in my store, which is something I still take great pride in. I eventually got a call from another store in another town that is close to Stockholm, saying they want my extra help, and I go there and I work there every now and then. And so what I start doing is I start going between my Stockholm store and this other store in this other town, front and back, and in both stores I'm doing really well. In both stores I am one of the best sellers every single week, pretty much every single week, and so I'm doing great. You know, I'm having a great time. I'm kind of feeling a little bit slimy about pushing memberships and everything all the time, but you know, I'm working in the numbers and it's still fun. Then summer of 2014 comes and I go on vacation, and I'm away on vacation for about 3 weeks, more or less. And at this point I also want to point out that later that year Ant and Beaver also went on vacation for about 3 weeks. They actually went on the same time together to somewhere in Europe and spent about 3 weeks there. So at that point I was basically alone in the store. 17 days straight I worked, I remember. But anyway, somewhere in July my vacation is about to end, and I look at my schedule and I realize I haven't gotten any new shifts from after the vacation at all. So what I do is I call up Albatross, my region manager, and like, hey dude, what's going on? And he basically says, yeah, you've been away for quite some time now, haven't you? To which I just go, well, yeah, it's summer vacation, and also Hawk signed my vacation papers before he left. You know, he approved everything. And I start getting a really weird feeling in my stomach, but I kind of tried to shake it, and I eventually get one shift sometime in late July, which is like a few weeks after my vacation has ended. I eventually do get back to GameStop a few weeks after my vacation has ended, effectively doubling my vacation length. The vacation isn't paid, by the way, just so you know. No payment, just no money. Now, when I finally do get back, I'm told that I'm gonna be having a sit-down meeting with Albatross. And so I go have this meeting with him, and he basically says that I've had too much vacation and that I'm not showing that I really want to do this enough. So basically what he wants me to do is he wants to see me try even more, and like, you really need to show that this is really what you want. You've been away for far too long. That's not how a good employee does it. And at this point I'm getting a kind of a bad vibe, because I know that Beaver and Ant have been there alone for a few weeks. I should also point out, by the way, that Ant and Beaver used to talk shit about Hawk all the time, and about Mouse as well, for the matter, when I was hearing, which kind of made me feel like, alright, they're probably saying stuff about me as well while I'm gone. And having Albatross react like this all of a sudden, it was weird, I'm just saying. Anyway, I once again explain about Hawk signing all my papers before leaving, and he somewhat dismissed the whole thing, and that's basically it for now. I get a few more shifts, like, okay, fine, you can work a few more days over the next week or two, and we'll take it from there. I come back from vacation and business is very slow, and in fact I am not meeting the weekly goals set by Beaver. She brings me in and talk about my low numbers, how I'm not getting enough pre-orders, how I'm not selling enough membership cards, which by the way cost $20. Why would you even pay for that? All of this despite being the top seller in the store still, and we as a store being one of the highest selling stores in all of Stockholm at the time. I kind of assume she has this talk with every employee, and that every single store manager in every single store has this talk with every single employee, probably as an instruction from Albatross due to the bad sales. At this meeting, however, I'm specifically instructed to ask each customer about pre-orders, like, oh, is there something you want to pre-order? And you should pre-order this so we don't sell out. I am also specifically told that not a single customer will leave the store without having at least a level 1 membership card, which is free to get, but you can't have a customer come in and not sign up for that card. You can't. However, level 1 cards don't really count, so you basically should try to get everybody a level 3 card, which costs $20. We also need to push game protection even more, which is a very, very scammy warranty for $2 that lets you replace the game if something happens. And we also need to push pre-owned way, way harder. Now, if you were to fail any of this in front of Beaver while she was watching, or, and for the matter, who I later found out was reporting everything to Beaver directly, you would eventually get in to have the talk, which is a talk that I were to have later and that other employees also were to have. And again, this was not just with me and Beaver, this was also going on in other stores around Stockholm at the time. The numbers keep going down and I'm eventually sent in to have another talk with Beaver, and this, my friends, is where the story takes its darkest turn of them all. I am, and we are, all the employees, specifically encouraged to add game protection to every single transaction without even asking. Basically just chug it in there as an extra thing on the receipt for another $2, and rather have them complain afterwards than them not getting it at all, because most people don't even notice, so that's $2 free. We are also encouraged to not sell new copies if we have the pre-owned ones in stock, sometimes even hide the new ones back there. This is not a joke. And finally, we are encouraged to accept hardware trade-ins basically no matter what. If there's some small piece missing, like a piece of the cord is missing, or if like there's some minor defect, like my PS4 controller right here having some rubber torn off, we are encouraged to accept that no matter what, as long as it's technically working. All of this, by the way, is very much against GameStop's policy thing that you sign when you start working there and in the rules, but this is what we're encouraged to do because business is bad. Sweden is not a large country and Stockholm is not that big of a city, and to top that off, I'm working in a very remote part of Stockholm. So, you know, some days I might have 3 people come in the store all day, 10 hours. So what I end up doing, and this is a bit shameful, what I end up doing is I start pre-ordering games in the system myself in my own name and in some of my friends' names, and putting in the money myself in the register just to have the transaction written down as ka-ching, 1 pre-order, ka-ching, 1 pre-order in the Beat Yesterday book. Because here's the thing. At the beginning of the week, Beaver is filling out a number of everything that we need to have completed by the end of the week. Like, the week starts on Sunday, and by Saturday, Endigo needs to have done at least 13 pre-orders, 20 membership cards. You get the idea. Now, if you have a goal to do at least 13 pre-orders, sometimes way more than that in a week, and you only have 3 people even enter the store in one day, maybe not having a single transaction, that's not gonna happen. But if it doesn't happen, no matter the reason, you need to have the talk, because you haven't delivered the numbers, which is why I started pre-ordering things in my own name with my own money. And this is not just me. I know other people in my store, in other stores, and other people in other countries, GameStops, I know for a fact, have done the same. This is not exclusive to me or to GameStop in Stockholm, Sweden. This is a thing that people do at GameStop. They pre-order games with their own money just to technically fill out the numbers to not have their job taken away from them. Then finally, we end up in November of 2014, and me having almost worked there for a full year, and Ant tells me that there's gonna be a new employee coming. Woo! Somebody right off the street who's never worked in a store before. What I probably should point out here is that if you worked a full year in retail in Sweden, it is mandatory that you get a raise. You do get a raise every single year in retail. That's the law. I start putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm starting to feel kind of burnt out, and I'm feeling like I'm probably gonna leave this company kind of soon, if I even get to keep my 1 year anyway. So I decided that I'm gonna be leaving before 2014 turns into 2015. I'm gonna be off from GameStop and try to do something else. So this new guy starts. I don't even remember his name, but he is a train wreck. First of all, he's not even allowed to run the counter for a good few weeks because he has no retail experience whatsoever. But he keeps giving wrong information, and you know, yeah, you can play your PS4 games on your PS3, stuff like that, which is like very like, where'd you get this guy? Then, a week before my 1 year anniversary at working at GameStop, I am sent in to have a talk with Albatross, the region manager. And so I go there to the meeting, actually he comes to the store, the meeting's just in the back room, and Beaver is there as well. What Albatross basically tells me is that he doesn't feel he wants to extend my contract beyond the first year due to my too low numbers. At this point, I am nowhere near meeting the required numbers that Beaver writes out in the beginning of every week in the Beat Yesterday book, but I'm still by far the highest seller in the entire store, and we are still one of the highest selling stores in all of Stockholm. So while technically I wasn't meeting her demands, I was still outselling her herself and most of the other people in the store who came and went, and most other stores in the city in general. I'm technically still working there for another week, so they asked me like, hey, do you want to go out and finish the week? You don't have to, you'll get the same salary anyway. So I decided, no, I'm not finishing the week. So I leave the store and I never set my foot there again. Now what I've learned since then is that every other person who joined GameStop around the time I did, slightly before, slightly after, none of them got their contracts extended beyond this first year due to too poor numbers, and instead they hired new people fresh off the street who didn't have any retail experience. Again, pointing out that I was the top seller in my store and we were one of the top stores in all of Stockholm. So make of that what you will. Now, I did go back to that very mall about a year later, and that GameStop store was gone. It's gone. And since then, most of the GameStops in Stockholm and in Sweden have closed entirely, and the few that are left are now called GameStop Plus and are basically toy stores that also have some games on one of the walls. That's basically it. GameStop is basically a merch shop these days, which is what it is. And so that is basically the story of me working at GameStop. Now, I'm not gonna go into other stories of other employees and other store managers getting deported and all kinds of crazy stuff. I want to keep this strictly about my own experience, my own story firsthand. But what I do want to add is that I've seen a couple of other why I quit my job at GameStop stories where they do claims of like things that have happened in the stores and things that their store managers have asked them or forced them to do, and basically all I've seen of that is true. It's very exactly my own experience, pretty much, of like being forced to add game protection, sometimes even sneaking in game protection, but also pushing membership cards and pre-orders and doing your own pre-orders just to fill up the numbers. That is real, that does happen. So with that being said, I do not recommend anybody to work for GameStop, especially now that the chain is definitely dying. So yeah. So anyway, that was quite a different video, quite a long video for my channel, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. If you are looking for a job, don't go look somewhere else. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoy my normal stuff, make sure you leave a like on this video. Leave a comment if you want more story times like this. I do have more stories to tell, but you know, I'm mostly about music and games. But yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you stay subscribed to my channel, and until next time, peace!
Everybody, I'm making a return. My name is Endigo, no time for you.